Multiple greetings. My name is Paul Eaton. I'm an assistant professor at Sam Houston State University, and in this SlideShare presentation, I hope to provide an overview of my Pecha Kucha proposal for the ACPA 2016 convention to be held in Montreal, Canada. I'm purposely leaving the slides blank in order to have you focus on my ideas, but this will give you the best overview of my current thinking about what I would like to discuss in this talk at the convention. The title of my talk is Rethinking Holistic Education, Posthumanism in College Student Education. I'd like to begin with the question, what if the human was not the measure? This is a question posed by two educational philosophers and theorists, Nathan Sneza and John Weaver. And in a room full of college student educators, this may appear to be an awkward question. We deal with humans every day. Yet I contend that our increasing hyper-focus on the human in education broadly, and student affairs specifically, has resulted not in holistic education, but a tragic, troubling, soul and spiritual deadening fragmentation. We have before us ethical quandaries. Posthumanist thinking poses possibilities for us in dealing with these ethical dilemmas. So how did we get to this place? We might think about the foundations of education as we know it. We have all been participating in a grand experiment for the last several centuries called dialogic reasoning. And this form of education was largely laid out by Plato, Descartes, and other philosophers, and there are many possibilities associated with this worldview. For example, the formalization of the hard sciences, the rise of academic disciplines, and important to many of us, schooling and education. But there are also many limitations to this worldview. This worldview is formulated not on relationships, but on separation, on fragmentation, and of particular consequence, the creation of the human. So what is the human? Over the past several centuries, education has become the primary means by which society has defined what was human and worthy of centering, of consideration. We came to believe that what we think of as humans were rational and capable of learning, whereas other sentient and non-sentient beings were not rational, could not participate in dialogue, could not learn, and thus were unworthy of centered consideration. Animals and plants, bacteria and viruses, atoms and electron force fields, stars and planets. The fact that we ask the question, what is human, has also led to the processes of dehumanization. Education has become one of the great engines of dehumanization. We denied and continue to deny access to current educational practices to those we consider less than human. Women, communities of color, the poor, people who are differently abled. And we also deny that there are other ways of knowing and being in the world. Thus, we dehumanize those who have not gone through our formal institutions of education, believing they cannot contribute to the society. Corporations are people, my friends. This may be true given sentiments such as this. When corporations are people, when they become humans, then what we used to think of as humans are not worthy of consideration. Former humans become expendable objects, unworthy of voice, of hope, wonder, or participation in dialogue. We are less than human, and education participates in preparing us for our own dehumanization. This occurs presently largely through aims, outcomes, and planning. As educators, we've become hyper-focused on measurement, learning outcomes, curriculum rubrics, competencies. If it's not on the chart and if it cannot be measured, it's not important. These outcomes are driven to an increasingly large extent by new humans, corporations, money, and political parties. These new humans do not consider relationships any more important than the old humans did. I think many of us realize this. We begrudgingly, often in vitriolic opposition, participate in this system. Our way out of this quagmire might be to decenter the human. When we use the human as the measure of all educational outcomes, we unnecessarily, violently, and unethically limit our own entanglement with the world. We perpetuate fragmentation that continues to contribute to disastrous consequences for life on the planet Earth. College student educators are uniquely poised to take up this charge because it's part of our historical calling and mission. My opinion is that despite the rhetoric, we have largely abandoned our calling for holistic education in college student educators. Continuing to bend our work in the direction of the new humans, we continue to center old humans' worth on new human conceptions, skills, competencies, worthy of investment due to return on investment. What we must do is refocus relationships. We might begin by thinking about relationships beyond the human to human. I'm not minimizing the importance of human to human relationships. There will forever be ongoing work in this regard. But I ask us to think more broadly. Ask ourselves and our students to sit quietly with a plant, an animal, a mountain, an object. What is our relationship? Participating in a different relational activity such as this might lead to a different set of questions, reconnecting that which humanism has fragmented. We might begin by asking not how the plant, animal, mountain, or object can benefit me, an activity that centers the human, but how to consider the world from their perspective. Reestablishing relationships with the more than human world might lead us to reconsider other questions. What is the plant, animal, or mountain learning from me? What is it learning without my intervention? What can these sentient and non-sentient objects teach me? We might give up the idea that education must have some natural, rational, and predetermined end, that these ends are something we should or can determine in advance, that there are best practices. Predetermining an accessible end cuts off possibilities, emphasizing this or that practice works, by ignoring the question, as Nathan Snaza reminds me, works for what? Works for what is an ethical question. If education continues centering the human, then education works solely for and on behalf of the human. This has been the model for many centuries. The disastrous consequences of this model has plenty of evidentiary support. We must rethink ethics from a more than human perspective. We must think ethics from a relational perspective, human to more than human, and more than human to more than human. So this talk serves as an invitation to consider what it would mean for our practice as college student educators to de-center the human. What new possibilities would unfold by shifting our focus? Would we have a renewed focus on relationships, on love, on learning, on what it means for us to be engaged in holistic education? Would decentering the human change our practice? Posthumanism is not about denying the importance of the human in the world. Posthumanism is not about cyborg or technologically mediated identities, although studies in these areas can help us think human differently. Posthumanism is about displacing the human as the center of the universe. Posthumanism challenges us to think anew about the aims, functions, and purpose of human education. When we decenter the human, we are forced to think differently. We focus not on individuality, but on relationships, entanglements, interactions. Human to human, certainly, but also relationships to environments, nature, technological gadgetry, animals, plants, material objects, cosmic energy. These relationships are certainly worthy of our consideration, and for me, this is the ethical call of college student education. Thank you.